And now something completely different.
Good afternoon. I'm speaking to you live just outside
I like to think balding is just God's way of saying, now let's see you get laid.
Is it true that if you don't use it, you lose it?
What I'd really like to do is put the greatness of this man in perspective.
The hair loss community has a lot to be thankful for, having you as a spokesperson.
You mean you just call this guy up?
About life and about reality.
And now, America's #1 reality radio show for men. Live from Los Angeles, it's Spencer Kobren's The Bald Truth.
Hey guys, welcome to the broadcast. Sorry I'm a couple of minutes late. The wife just walked through the door with a bottle of wine, and I wanted to pour a couple of glasses. So here I am. Hey, listen, if you're new to the broadcast, don't know who I am or why I'm here, this is The Bald Show, and I'm a consumer advocate for men and women dealing with hair loss. Now, as strange as that is, that was a bizarre sound. As strange as that is, you know, 2/3 of guys by the age of 35 suffer with some degree of hair loss. 40% of hair loss sufferers are women. This is a silent epidemic of biblical proportions that affects just about every household in this country and around the world. So if you're tuning in for the first time, if you're listening on iTunes Radio, if you're watching us on Stickam or Ustream or on The Bald Truth or on GFQLive.tv, if you're listening on Stitcher, and it's the very first time listening to this broadcast, and you don't know anyone dealing with hair loss, if you're not dealing with hair loss, if you think hair loss doesn't matter, then change the station, because this is not a broadcast for you. But for the rest of us, for the guys like me who've been dealing with hair loss for over 20 years, I started the initial throes of hair loss about the age of 21. I am now 47 years old, and I've been fortunate enough to save a lot of hair, as you can probably see. But there isn't a day that goes by that hair loss hasn't somehow or doesn't somehow affect my life. So for all the rest of us who know that this is a big deal, this is your safe place. This is a place where you can come and vent, talk about anything and everything hair loss. This is a place where you can get completely objective information. This is a place where you're not going to be sold shit. I'm not going to sell you drugs or products or services. I don't sell hair transplants, even though I founded the International Alliance of Hair Restoration Surgeons. We're here to guide you in a safe direction. If you're considering any product or service to treat your hair loss, please remember that it's a $3.5 billion a year industry. 99% of all products being sold are complete bullshit. They do not work. There are a handful of hair transplant surgeons around the world, in my view, that are performing surgical hair restoration to state-of-the-art standards. There are 2 FDA-approved products that work, and that's really it. That's the whole game. So if you're going online, doing your research, trying to find something for hair loss, and you find some guy selling an ebook who claims that he's found a cure for hair loss, I can almost guarantee that that's not the case. If there's some herbal remedy being sold in a Google ad, claiming that's an all-safe, natural alternative to finasteride or Propecia, I can almost guarantee that's not going to help you. This is a very treacherous place. If you're dealing with hair loss and you're considering treating your hair loss, then you really need to do your due diligence. You need to know that most anyone in this industry is out there to con you, to scam you, to take your money. And sadly, in some cases, they'll disfigure you. So please, if you're considering anything, any product or service to treat your hair loss, you might want to check out the American Hair Loss Association at AmericanHairLoss.org. Please, stay tuned to this broadcast, learn, share. If you have questions about anything hair loss, this is your safe place. Let me go out the phone number. And you know what? I haven't had my lower third on the entire opening. Normally someone would tell me that. My producer's out having drinks. 888-659-3727 is the phone number. It's on the bottom of the screen. 888-659-3727. If you have any questions, concerns about your hair loss, if you just need to vent, if you just want to talk about anything in the world of hair loss, this is your place. If you're considering having surgery, if you have surgery scheduled tomorrow morning, and you're not sure that you did your due diligence, I'm going to tell you right now, it's better to lose that deposit than to make the wrong decision and sit in that chair tomorrow and get fucked up. It's only money. I know guys who have gone through with it, who've actually called this program, who have told us that they've chosen a certain doctor that we would not recommend. And I would say, listen, take your time. This might not be right for you. Several months later, they would contact us saying that they should have listened to us. They were concerned about their deposit. Don't even worry about that if that's the case. Now, I'm not telling you guys to jump ship if you go to a doctor that's not recommended by this broadcast or the IHRS. There are plenty of doctors out there who I'm sure have not applied to the IHRS that I know nothing about, who are doing good work. But just make sure you're the right candidate. Make sure that you've seen enough of the doctor's patients. Make sure that you are sure that you've made the right decision. Because if you have any question, cancel, leave, run for the hills. 888-659-3727. In about 20 minutes or so, we're going to bring on a hair transplant surgeon, Dr. William Yates out of Chicago, who I wanted to have him on the broadcast because he is a guy who's been in the field for about 7 years, doing traditional strip surgery originally, conventional harvesting, really to state-of-the-art standards. But he has slowly been evolving his practice, really getting more into follicular unit extraction. And the reason I wanted to bring him on is because we had an interesting discussion last week with Dr. Alan Bauman, who came back from the ISHRS conference in the Bahamas. And the big news was that a lot of guys were either converting to FUE or really starting to at least dip their toe into the FUE pond, so to speak, where just a few years ago, everyone was resistant. And I'm going to pick up the phones in a second, but let me give out the phone number, 888-659-3727. But I've told you guys this story before. I'll make it brief. But back in 1999, I was contacted by Dr. Ray Woods out of Australia, who at the time was doing something called the Woods technique. And he told me that he believed that he has solved the problem of the linear scar when it comes to surgical hair restoration, and that his technique was a much more elegant technique, that his patients were able to walk out of his office and in a few days were basically pain-free, just about healed, and able to go on with their lives. I was very intrigued, and we spoke at length. I saw some of his patients and pictures and videos, and I brought this information to several of the big guys in the field. Now, mind you, I had just gotten into the field. The Bald Truth was just published the year prior. I was lucky enough to get on the radio, and at the time there was a lot of press and publicity. That's a tough word for me. Publicity about what I was doing. So everyone was trying to somehow connect themselves to the Bald Truth. You always have to look at things with a jaundiced eye, but I really had some, I had a good vibe about this guy Woods. To make a long story short, I tried to connect Dr. Woods to these other doctors here in the U.S. I tried to say, hey, listen, this is a technique you should look at. Everyone said that the guy was full of shit. Everyone said that it could not be done, that we were hearkening back to the old plug days, just with smaller plugs, that the transection rate would be, crazy, that would be setting the industry back decades. I was like, listen, guys, that's not the case. I've seen the guys work. I sent a couple of guys from the show over to him, and I mean, it's pretty pristine. Check it out. Let's try to make this happen. No one wanted to do it. I was finally able to convince some guys in North America, John Cole being one of them, to really take a closer look and embrace this technique, which he did and some other guys did as well, and that helped to evolve the field. There was another guy out there that totally denied it, said it would not happen. About 3 months after we first spoke, he actually wrote the first paper on follicular unit extraction. But it's taken from that point of resistance, about a decade to get to this point. And I'm glad that it is evolving. I'm glad that we're getting to the point where more and more doctors are embracing FUE. But my question has always been, why the resistance? If it is truly a superior technique, and I'm not saying that it is in every case, I still believe that there is indication for the strip procedure. A lot of guys are going to say that's bullshit. Why are you saying that, Kobren? You're just trying to hold on to your income through the IHRS, which is bullshit, by the way. You know how many FUE doctors are out there in Europe who are applying to the group? I could bring on 100 guys in a month. But why has it taken so long? And that's one reason I want to bring Dr. Yates on, and also to ask him, why, he decided to evolve his practice, get to this point. And by the way, he's a hair transplant patient himself. So before he comes on, he's going to be on in about 20 minutes or so, 15 minutes or so. I want to take some phone calls. 888-659-3727 is the toll-free number. Give us a call here at The Bald Truth. You have some time to ask me questions now. You get, obviously, when Dr. Yates is on, feel free to call as well. 888-659-3727. Let's see who this is. Hey, you're on the air. Who's this?
I have no choice tonight but to strongly castigate my detractors for starting vicious rumors about me. No, I haven't resigned from the Bald Truth, A, and B, I haven't been fired from the Bald Truth. Let me tell you cats something. You cats in grammar school, I was on a Bald Truth back in 1998 at 11:30 p.m. on Saturday nights at Spencer. You guys are doing your homework. Just cut out the nonsense, all right? You know what I'm saying? I want to thank my millions of fans out there, especially my friends from the chat room like Norwood, Bald Jerry, Johnny from Ohio, and George, and Niserol. And by the way, I won't be in the chat room this evening due to the fact due to Hurricane New York, my computer is down. So I'm a little bit, off base tonight. Thank you.
My name is
Joe from Staten Island.
My name is excuse me. My name is
Would you like to reiterate it?
My name is
Have you heard it? Excuse me.
My name is
Joe from Staten Island.
Joe, I'm really glad that you did call in today. There were some vicious rumors out there that Joe wasn't going to be calling anymore, that you somehow quit the broadcast, that you've decided, you know what, 14 years of being our number one caller is long enough, and that you didn't want any part of it anymore.
Well, Spencer, that's not true. I'll tell you the truth. As you know, I suffer from bipolar disorder. My lithium levels were off. I saw my psychiatrist who gave me blood work for the past, 2 or 3 weeks. So my behavior was I was in a manic state. I don't know if you noticed, my behavior was a little bit unusual.
What? Really?
Yes, my lithium levels were off.
You definitely seemed, last week, you definitely seemed, a little fucked up. I'm going to be honest with you. There was something going on with you.
Yeah.
You were... You were very, that's the word. You were extremely agitated. You were running amok in the chat room. You couldn't deal with the fact that we had guests. And, you kind of went off on some people. But, listen, Joe, you've been a friend of the show for 14 years. You're my very first caller on WABC in New York.
11:30 p.m. Saturday evening.
That's right. How can I be mad at you?
Of course not, Spencer. These people have just started these rumors. You never say you're mad. I mean, people, my detractors, your detractors have started all this stuff.
And I look like a lumberjack tonight. You can't see what I'm wearing. Why am I wearing this shirt with my studio pad in the back the way it's lit? It looks ridiculous. That's the thing about being on camera now. I was on radio for 14 years. You didn't give a shit about what you looked like. I could walk in a T-shirt and a hangover. It didn't make a difference. Sorry, Joe. I'm going off on a tangent.
Well, obviously, I tell you the truth, I can't see it because my computer's down because, I'm suffering the effects of the hurricane in New York.
I know. So tell me, how are you making out? How's your family doing?
Well, I haven't really spoken with them. They've been downstairs. I've been up here. I've been unable to do my research for the past couple of days. I've been going kind of crazy. But my psychiatrist has changed my lithium dosage, so now I'm more stable this evening. I should probably.
Well, you definitely seem like you're more lucid and definitely a little bit more on the stable side, so that's good. So, okay, you haven't been able to do any research for the last 2 days, but prior to that, is there any news that you want to share with us?
Yes, I do have. I have two pieces of breaking news that I picked up past a few days. First of all, the lead researcher from Allergen. I think her name was Dr. Ballard. She's a female. I don't have the name in front of me, But she wrote a paper stating, this is a fact, Allergen has released this fact, the receptors in the scalp are exactly the same as the receptors in the eyelashes, which in itself is tremendous news. Which means that the allergen product by Monopros, which obviously works in the eyelashes, will definitely work in the scalp. To what extent, she didn't comment on. No one knows that, because obviously that's a corporate secret. I expect to have news on that any time due to the fact that Allergan's phase 2 studies have now been completed. It's been all over the newspapers and everything else. I don't know if you've heard it. I don't know if you heard about that.
I have, and I think that's great that you are on top of things as usual, Joe. I'm sorry I got distracted in the chat room. Like I said, I'm talking about the camera, and people bust your balls. Guy in the chat room says the shirt's fine. You got to watch your posture, Spence. Who the fuck wants to hear this stuff? I'm sorry, Joe. All right, I'll sit up straight. I'm working here.
Are they attacking me yet, or they haven't started?
Do you know how difficult this is? I run the cameras. I run the board. I run my stream. I deal with the chat. I got to somehow be lucid and take your calls and give you guys advice. And now I have to have good posture. Jesus.
Spencer, no matter what you do, you always be attacked. You know that. You know how it is. I wish I was in the chat room tonight. I'd be defending you against some of your detractors.
It's all right. It's okay.
Am I being attacked yet?
Dude, kick Labradoodle out of the chat.
Well, I have one more piece of news. I was a little surprised by your guest last week. Dr. Bauman. I have a great deal of respect for him. He's a great surgeon, a great American, and a good friend of mine. But I was a little shocked when he seemed very dismissive of the fact that in the Histogen news, the Histogen stated they were growing 39% terminal heads on 086 and 087. I mean, to me, that's dramatic news. And he seemed like very dismissive of it.
I don't think he's dismissive. And by the way, Suncast, I was kidding about kicking Labradoodle out of the chat. Labradoodle, feel free to come back as another user. I was just joking. Suncast, that was a joke. I would have written you if I really wanted him to be kicked out of the chat. Labradoodle, you're welcome to come into the chat. You're welcome to say that I'm incoherent or whatever you want. You have that right. Jesus, Suncast, don't take me so literally. Apologize to Labradoodle when he comes back in. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, yeah. Well, sorry about you. You're in charge, but this is made. My expert opinion. This is major news from history. I mean, 39% regrowth of terminal hairs. I mean, I know it's 6 and know it's 7. I mean, that's dramatic to say the least.
Well, listen. I think Dr. Bauman wants people to be kind of cautiously optimistic. I think he's providing us with as much information as he's able to without giving us false hope. Period. I mean, I think that's responsible.
Okay, I could agree with that, but I don't understand why he didn't elaborate on it. He just wanted to move on. He just wanted to move on. I don't know. Maybe it was part of a manic state. Maybe I misunderstood him.
It's very, very possible. It's very possible.
Because I'm a big fan of Dr. Bauman. That he's a good friend of mine. He's a great American. He's a great surgeon. He's everything. A handsome guy. He's everything rolled up in one.
Okay. I don't know what that means.
Excuse me?
Yeah, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, and the bottom line is, Adaran's, I got no real news at the ISHRS conference except the history news. That's the only news I really have to, unfortunately, have to report on. Now, for some reason, I got cut off tonight. I didn't hang up. It's cell service. It's
All right.
on and off.
I'll tell you what. I'm gonna keep you potted up. I'm gonna take the next call. If you want if you want to interject, feel free.
But if I am cut off for some reason, I have you any to record this. I didn't hang up. The cell service is interrupted here because we have a hurricane.
Okay.
We had a hurricane.
All right, man. All right. Let's see who this is.
Thank you, man. Thank you, man.
Hey, you're on the air. Who's this?
Hey, Spencer. Hey, Joe.
Hey, George. What's happening, man?
Hey, George.
It's good to hear your voices, guys. Joe, I'm concerned about your health, as always. Joe, like a week and a half ago, I lost one of my oldest friends, a guy from New Jersey with whom I worked about 27 years ago. He was in, he worked with me for a few months in Mobile, where I live, and he had undiagnosed bipolar disorder, even though he had a father who was a very wealthy anesthesiologist and a brother who was a neurologist, a brain doctor. He didn't get properly diagnosed, and until he was middle-aged, and he'd ruined his health by then. He was only 3 years older than me, and he had heart disease, lung disease, diabetes, you name it, he had it, and he checked out like 2 weeks ago at 53. So I'm really concerned about your health, and I tell you, I'm glad that there's consciousness. I realize this is a hair loss show, but I'm glad consciousness is being raised in this country about the scourge of bipolar disorder, because in my life at age 50, I know about 5 people whose lives have been destroyed by bipolar. Girl that babysat me when I was a child, guy I grew up with from elementary school, he's on disability. This friend of mine that just passed away, a friend whose husband was a pastor, and he had to leave the ministry because of his bipolar. I don't know what's going on with this disease, but it's a horrible disease, and Joe, I just pray that you get some proper counseling and relief from this, because I don't want to see it. I don't want to see it destroy you.
Well, George, I am on lithium for it and Zyprexa. I'm on multiple drugs for this particular psychiatric disorder.
Well, now that you guys brought the show to a screeching halt, and I appreciate that, George. What's up with you,
Spencer? I was concerned about your father's situation. That I hadn't heard him talk about that.
Oh, thanks, man. He's fine. He's fine. He's on the Upper East Side. All the lights are on. He's got somebody with him 24 hours a day, so he's good.
And I was horrified last night. I couldn't sleep, and I turned on the TV, and I saw that firestorm in Queens, New York, and I was concerned about Andrew, and I haven't been able to get a call through to him.
I think Andrew's been drunk for like 5 days. He's at a bar right now. So he's good.
Well,
he's fine.
Is everything okay with his home and all that? Because they had like 50 homes that went up in flames last night. It was like...
No, he's great. He's fine.
Well, I'm glad to hear everybody.
He's not in the chat. He's actually not producing the show tonight. Suncast is producing the show tonight. But
hello to Suncast. I have a friend that I stayed with when I was modeling in New York. A friend that lives in Greenwich Village. A friend of the family, retired photographer. We can't get through to him, but I understand the lines are down, and 1 in 4 cell towers is down.
Well, if he's living in the village, if he's still down in Christopher Street or wherever he's living, was that the wrong thing to say?
Yeah, Christopher and Bleecker Street.
Wow, I was right. So if he's still down on Christopher Street, it's possible that he has no power.
Yeah, we heard that the lower quarter of the island was underwater there. So he may live in the upper, in the lower 1/3. I don't know if he lives in the lower quarter, and I don't know exactly the topography of the island like you do. But we just keep all those people in our prayers. I mean, they're now experiencing what we on the Gulf Coast have to live with on a regular basis.
Right.
Those guys up there just aren't equipped to deal with it. We've dealt with it all of our lives. So anyway,
all right, man.
Enough about the storm stuff.
I appreciate you taking the time to ask and to think about my dad and to call us and give us your well wishes. I really do.
Well, Scott, I didn't ask about your father because I thought you wanted to discuss it. You said that once you'd rather not talk about it on the air. You said that.
Dude, don't worry about it. It's fine. And I appreciate that. There's certain times you could ask about my father. That's like when there's a hurricane in Manhattan, then that's an appropriate time to see how my dad's doing.
I apologize, sir. I thought you wanted to discuss it. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's all right. So listen, guys, we got a bunch of calls, and I have a feeling. I'm hoping that Dr. William Yates is on one of the lines. as well.
Thank you.
So, George, did you have anything you wanted to ask before I take a call?
Not specifically. I wanted to thank you for having Ballman on last week. It was very fascinating, very informative. Again, like Joe, I was a little disappointed that there wasn't more positive news about the neogenesis situation. That seems I'm a little disheartened about that. He didn't seem real positive on that particular.
Well, I am trying to get Ken Washenik on the program. Like I told you, he's not too keen about coming on live because of some stuff that happened in the past. He doesn't want to have his back put against the wall about a timeline, stuff like that. I'm trying to figure something out. Maybe we're going to do a taped interview and get that on the program. But we might get some better insight about what's really happening. You have to understand these guys are just listening to lectures. They're not in the labs. So, and Dr. Washenik does have people who are in the lab. So maybe we can get some more information from him.
Is there a possibility your organization that's involved with the organizations you founded relating to hair loss, that you guys might extend the scope of your screening to dermatologists who are involved with scalp health, or is that like too broad for you?
I would love to expand what we're doing, but that is pretty broad. And maybe we can find a bunch of guys who are doing some, really interested in hair loss, and we can kind of guide you in that direction. But I really don't think we're going to get to the point where we're going to be taking any type of membership fees from dermatologists or really screening them the way that we screen hair transplant doctors.
Right. I realize there's only so much you can do. And
I would like to. Listen, don't think I don't want the money. If I was able to do that, if I thought it was something that was going to be worthwhile and I thought it was going to be something, but who knows, it's even tougher, when you're dealing with dermatologists, because there's a lot of guys, they're board certified dermatologists. They really will tell you that they know their shit. And the truth of the matter is, they may claim to take hair loss seriously, but once, they kind of, become part of something or what we, try to get, basically a lot of guys want to come on board because they just want to get people in their offices. They want to get people through the door. And to me, that's just a big responsibility to have my listeners, my viewers, my readers walk through somebody's door and not really be 100% confident that they're going to be treating them the right way. So the more people we bring on, the more difficult it's going to be to really screen these guys. So,
George, I understand that.
George, listen, guys, I'm going to put you on. George, I don't know. Do you have internet access tonight, or do you want me to put you on hold?
Just put me on hold, please, if you would, sir.
All right, I'm going to ask you guys. I'm going to have a lot of people on hold tonight because a lot of guys can't even watch or listen to the show because they're on the East Coast. If for some reason there is an issue with my screening process, or guys who are on hold that can't hear each other talk, or if my guest cannot hear, I'm going to have to drop your calls. All right? So I will put you I'll put you on hold, though.
Thank you, Spencer.
Hey, who's this? You're on the air.
Hey, Spencer, it's Dr. Yates.
Hey, Dr. Yates, how are you?
Good. Doing well.
How is the volume? I have a couple of people on hold because of the storm. They want to listen to the show. Can you hear everything okay?
Oh, yeah, it's good. Really good.
Okay, good. Well, listen, I appreciate you taking the time to call. I know this is kind of late notice. We just spoke. I had a cancellation, and I called you this afternoon because I was thinking about. You know what? Let me put Joe on hold because I think I hear his kid in the background. So let me see if I can do this.
Oh, he's not actually.
Hold on. Okay, Dr. Yates, you there?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, we were talking this week and last week about, your practice's evolution, your personal evolution also. You are, besides being a hair transplant surgeon, you're a hair transplant patient.
Right. Just like that old commercial or whatever the guy's name was. I'm not only a surgeon, I'm a patient.
That's right. Cy Sperling from the Hair Club.
So Cy Sperling, that's right. How could I forget that? Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's, and I think that's unique because a lot of guys out there who are, they're in the trenches, they're performing surgery every day, but they haven't had surgery themselves. You're a relatively young guy who is
relatively, right?
Yeah, I mean we're close in age, and who had a couple of strip surgeries and FUE.
Right.
So why don't you tell us about your experience, and then we can talk about why you've decided to kind of evolve your practice.
Okay. Well, my personal experience with the hair transplant started about 2001, just watching an infomercial at night for, I believe it was MHR. At that time, I was a trauma surgeon, and I was 30-some-odd years old, and my hair was severely thinning, and the commercial just screamed at me and said, "Listen, guy, get your hair fixed. You look terrible." You know, because I had a big head anyway. So the next day, I went to MHR, blah, 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 and met Craig Ziering. He had a hair transplant, and it worked. It worked like crazy. Being a doctor, you're always skeptical, you know, so a lot of people say, "Why did you go? Did you check this guy out?" So forth and so on. Didn't do any. I just went there, had it done. And from that point on, I was hooked on the science of hair transplants because, I mean, literally the next year I looked 10 years younger, only with, you know, say 1,700 grafts to the front.
Wow.
Up till that's 2001. It's 2012, I probably have 6,000 grafts on the top of my head from a combination of strip surgery and FUE surgery. And I look like a new person, and, you know, you just look better. Of course, you're going to feel better. So I've been on both sides of the fence. So that's what I definitely bring to the table, that, hey, I've been there. I've felt the pain, the strip surgery, and I'm not talking about the pain of strip surgery. I've felt the pain of, you know, just baldness in general.
Right.
And I also have the benefit of the pleasure of how it really works and how good it can work, and how much better we're actually getting in these techniques.
Well, let me ask you a personal question. I always say this on the air. I think in the last 14 years, we've had maybe 5 or 6 black guys who've called in the program and talking about how hair loss has affected their lives. And the vast majority of guys that have contacted us who are African American are really they at least claim that they're initially not that concerned. You know, eventually they kind of come out and say that they are. Because a lot of black guys can shave their head and look incredible. You know, if I would shave my head, I would look like Kane from Kung Fu. You know, I mean, I would look like a guy from the future. It would be ridiculous. But a lot of black guys can, you know, get away with it. I mean, culturally, I mean, do you see that there is a kind of resistance for black guys to even consider cosmetic surgery, especially when it comes to hair?
No. Not anymore. I mean, in public, everybody has to stick out their chest and, you know, say those kind of masculine things. I'm cool with it and I look good, so forth and so on. But in private, and I'd be willing to bet if you took Michael Jordan in private and said, "Hey, if you could have your hair back and look exactly like you did in 1983, would you do it?" I bet my life he would.
Yeah.
You know? So, I mean,
because
I think most guys would love to black, white, and every race would love to have the frame of the face. I mean, black guys learn to cope with it a little better, I think.
I agree with
it.
Yeah, I agree with that. But it's been an interesting, you know, phenomenon as far as, you know, what I've seen over the years. And when you read the message forums, that everyone is under the impression that, you know what, guys who are, you know, black guys who are dealing with it are much luckier. That's not necessarily the case. Like you said, they're probably suffering as well. They're just not as, you know, maybe not as verbal about it, whatever it is. Listen, I was a mess. When I started to lose my hair, the reason I do what I do is because I was so open about it. You know, I did everything I possibly could. You know, right now you were looking at a, you know, finasteride, a quasi comb over with a lot of hairspray and scalp paint on the back of my head. That's just that's how I live my life.
Yeah, but the real thing is it looks good. I mean, everybody, you know, like the Army says, you got to be all you can be, whatever that takes.
Right.
You know? I'm the same way.
I appreciate
I do whatever it takes. You know.
Yeah, and
it was devastating for me going bald. I mean, just devastating.
How old were you when you started?
I'd say 19. You know, right after I graduated from high school.
Wow.
You know, the corners started receding, and you see, you know, the writing on the wall. And one thing you just don't want to be is like bald in college or bald ever. You know, a lot of guys said, "Hey, you know, when I'm 40, I'll be okay with it." No, that's not true. I was 38 when I had my first hair transplant, and I was not okay with it then. And I have a family, kids, so forth and so on. Yeah. So, you know, I wasn't out running the clubs and things like that.
You know what's unique? When I look at you, when I see your images, and when I've seen you on video, I mean, you look like you have a full head of hair at this point. I mean, it's pretty damn good.
Yeah, it is. I mean, the density is good, and, you know, like Dr. Cole says, I mean, the trick with any good hair transplant is to have equal density all over your scalp. You know, you don't want a tuft here or a tuft there. So it's fairly equal, and like you know, I use at times hair thickening, like the fibers, you know, because that works extremely well because I wear my hair so short.
Right.
You know, and I also use it in the back because, you know, I wear my hair short. You know, I've had, 2 or 3 strip scars, FUE. The FUE looks beautiful in the back. You can't even tell anything. And that's one of the reasons I switched to FUE, kind of primarily because, this is my 7th year in the hair transplant, forum.
Right.
I'm actually in the arena doing transplants, and I was trained, of course, the strip method. And I started doing FUE when Dr. Harris showed me the technique about 2 to 3 years ago, because I realized this was the future of the hair transplant world. I mean, what young guy wants a big cut in the back of his head when he can have a nicely done mosaic pattern that you won't see even if you cut, with the number 1 blade, a buzzer in the back when you keep your hair short. So
now that's interesting that you say that, because you are, you're in the trenches. You're doing this. You learned doing conventional strip. Why do you think? And this is, I kind of know the answer to this, but I'm just curious why you think everyone has just been so resistant. Because honestly, even though it's more labor intensive, it takes a little bit more skill. Patients are coming away very happy with the FUE technique. Why are doctors so resistant?
Well, I just want to say one little fast thing first. Before I was a hair transplant surgeon, I was an ICU surgeon. And I saw this happen in the 1990s when laparoscopic surgery came out. Everybody now in the knee, the stomach, the brain, everywhere can have laparoscopic surgery. That's surgery through little holes. But when that transition came about in medicine, the older guys were so resistant. They said it's not going to work. Their incisions are small. The patients do better with the big incisions instead of the little. They resisted because they didn't want to change. They were having good results with their, big slice of surgery, so why change? So basically, I'd lived through this before, and I knew from, my mentors in FUE that the grafts grew, because that's the real answer. The grafts have to grow, you know. So there's been a big resistance because the learning curve, meaning the skill it takes to get good at this, is steep. It's not like something where, like you could do it twice, like riding a bike, and then on the third time, ride like Lance Armstrong. This takes some time, because the key to a FUE surgeon is you want to know how many grafts they harvest and what's the transection rate. Because you hardly hear about transection rates, because all these, anybody can go and get these grafts and they can look like garbage.
That's right. That's right. And that was kind of like the big fear initially. That's what a lot of the guys, the old guard, were saying, that, you know what, these guys are going to go in there, they're going to be aggressive, they're going to do large sessions, they're not going to be careful, they're going to be extracting a lot of garbage, and there's going to be a lot of unhappy patients. Now, the truth is, that did happen. There were guys out there that were kind of cowboys that thought they were, because sadly, Dr. Ray Woods really kept everything close to his chest, which I think was a mistake. And frankly, it's kind of made him more of a footnote in the history of FUE, as opposed to the true leader in FUE, which I think he should have been. But because he was so resistant to sharing the information, secretive, it was an issue, and a lot of people are harmed, in my view, because he didn't share that, and guys were trying it. They were trying to reinvent the wheel. But I now, thankfully, there were guys out there that did embrace it. And yes, at the beginning, there were some patients that, might not have had the best outcome, but eventually, and now today we see the results that we're seeing, consistent, great results. And, I think the big issue that a lot of guys are having now is this is argument between the, mechanized or the, the kind of, not automated, but, the FUE machines, robotic or even handheld stuff compared to the manual FUE. I personally think that it's really about the instrument. It's not necessarily about the instrument. It's more about the guy that's using the instrument.
Right.
And I don't know what your thoughts are.
Well, first, I just wanted to say one thing about FUE that a lot of people really overlook. The guys who do that, and women who do FUE, you're able to cherry pick hair. So you can actually see the hairs that are in anagen in the back of your scalp. So, when you take out a strip, you take out all comers. You're taking anagen hairs, telogen hairs, catagen. You're taking everything. But when you do FUE on somebody, you're picking the best, strongest hair that should grow like it's on fire.
Right.
So a lot of times, guys, my results I'm seeing, we have done less hair on a person with FUE, and it's grown better than any guy that's had, at least 10 to 20% more grafts by strip. So,
and that's interesting. That's an interesting point, because that's a point that actually Dr. Ray Woods has made for many years, and everyone has said he's full of shit. His claim was that he is able to move less hairs and have a better result.
It makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
If you can take out a strong guy versus a weak guy and put the strong guy leading the guard, I mean, you're going to have better results. I, like you, think that, it's not the instrument, it's the person behind the instrument that's going to make a difference. The things that, a lot of surgeons will disagree on. Number one, should the doctor be doing it or should the tech be doing it? Things like that. I do all mine, myself. My techs, extract because I use the Harris system and I use usually a 0.9 millimeter punch,
right.
But they don't actually extract for me because some of these cases are very tricky. Like people that have had, like me, 5 and 6, hair transplants, you're going back in still, getting scalp hair. The angles are just crazy.
Right.
And every hair is precious. You don't want to blow through 10, to get 5, something like that, So
well,
I wouldn't let my tech do it, and
yeah.
my techs are very good. I just think, I should do it. Now, some doctors feel differently, and that's okay.
Well, I don't disagree with you. I would say that personally, if I was going to have the surgery done, I would want to make sure that whoever extracted the grafts had a tremendous amount of skill. There's a handful of techs out there that are probably, in my view, even more skilled than a lot of the surgeons out there at removing these grafts. However,
no question. They're tech better at everything in any hospital. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, but however, I think in most cases that's not the case.
That's true.
So, you get a guy like, John Cole, a guy like, Harris, a guy like Alan Feller, for instance, who, these guys really know their business. They kind of understand the nuances of, once they get, once they score that skin, they understand, the moves they have to make to get that graft out, especially if they're difficult grafts to remove. A lot of techs just don't know that. But there are some guys out there. There's one guy out there, his name is Larry Leonard, who's like famous as in the tech world as an FUE tech. That guy's got some hands. He's got some real skill. So, I think it definitely depends on the person. But the big thing is, I don't necessarily believe that doing it manually is going to make it more efficient, or more, I should say, not more efficient. Doing it manually is not going to make it make the transection rate any less. I really think that these devices can really help doctors do their job even better. I don't know if you agree with that.
Well, always technology in the end, with anything scientific will, to some degree, trump the human experience. But, still, I think a hands-on experience with, manually doing it with whatever system, as long as your transection rate is appropriate and your speed is appropriate. People don't talk about speed because you have to have a balance between the speed and transections, because you don't want the patient coming at 8 in the morning and leaving at 2 in the morning,
right,
and the graft sitting out all day. So there are lots of things to consider when you're talking about, what type of FUE or who you're going to go to.
Well, what do you think about
things to consider.
What do you think about the ARTIST robot?
What I think about the ARTIST?
Yeah,
I think it's a good idea. I think it's a good idea. It brings a lot of people, to the arena of FUE. I'm talking about doctors who haven't, mastered, the FUE science. So it brings more availability for patients, and the results have been good, very good. Dr. Harris is very smart, and Sarah out in, San Francisco, developing the system.
Right.
So, I'm all for it. I don't have one here where I am in Chicago in the Oak Brook area, but, I know my partner, Dr. Ziering, does in California, and I've seen his results. And that speaks for itself. They're fantastic.
Well, and the only issue that a lot of guys have, at least in the online world, and that's really, let's face it, everything that's happening online now trickles down to the real world. And, what's happening in the online world is people are concerned about the size of the punch with the artist. With the artist. Now, obviously, there's basically it scores at a larger size. Well, actually, it scores at a smaller size and then opens up to a larger size within the skin.
Correct.
Yeah. So it scores at a minimum of
like a 1.2, something like that.
Yeah.
It's in that range, 1.2, 1.25, something like that.
But that's a significant amount of extra surface area, compared to a 0.9. Now,
some people are actually moving to a 0.8, millimeter punch.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So I know it's okay. So I know that there are there's some concern there. Well, I think it's a great device. I think that's, like you said, it's going to really move FUE into the forefront, in my view. I'm hoping that they are going to, and I know, from what I heard, they are working on different iterations, maybe working on smaller punches, because that is what, people are looking for. I think that if they can get down to a 0.9, a 0.8, and still have the consistency, I think that it's going to be a home run.
I believe they will. I mean, I couldn't see why they can't.
Yeah. Well,
I believe that.
Yeah, I hope that they will, because I'm telling you, I see the writing on the wall. There's a lot of guys that are contacting us, a lot of guys on the forums who are just like, I would never go with the robot because the punches are too big. I don't necessarily agree with that at this point, but that seems to be the general theme of what's going on. Listen, Dr. Yates, I want to take some phone calls while I have you on the line. And hopefully we can. We have somebody here that wants to actually ask a question about FUE. Let's see who this is.
Okay. Well, I know other things too.
Okay. Hey, you're on the air. Who's this?
Hey, Spencer. This is Vic from D.C.
Hey, Vic from D.C. What's happening, bro?
Good. It's pretty great show so far with Dr. Yates. I think he's actually the perfect person to talk to, because my skin tone is pretty much just a bit lighter than Dr. Yates.
All right, so let's go. What do you have on your mind, dude?
So my question for Dr. Yates is, I'm just pretty much sure that I want to do FUE, and of course Dr. Yates, I've gotten a lot of great advice from Spencer in the past. So I've come to the conclusion that I think FUE is good for me because I cut my hair very short. So my skin tone, and I'm looking at your picture right now on the IAHRS website, my skin tone is just a bit lighter than yours. And my concern is the white dot scarring that's left with FUE. I cut my hair down to a number 1. And I would like your thoughts on that, please.
Yeah, well, so like Spencer said, I mean, that's going to be related to the punch size, I do a lot of African-American patients that wear their hair at about a 1, or some even, lower than that without a guard, and they live in southern climates, and the white dots have not been a factor. I've had several FUE procedures done on the back of my head, and I wear my hair pretty close, and the tanning of the scarred skin has not been a factor. A lot of that's related to the punch size. Of course, a bigger hole, more surface area, will be more discernible once you get tan, but it really has not been a problem either in the Caucasian or African-American patients or any, ethnic patient where I've seen, white dots, where, hasn't been a problem.
Oh, okay. Because my skin tone is basically like dark Asian. You could think like that.
Yeah.
Maybe 0.9 and below, what you're saying is okay for me.
Yeah, I'd say 0.9. Or, it depends on how curly your hair is. But usually now most people can, do, even curly hair with a 0.9 millimeter punch. It all, every case is different. Some you have to go up to a 1. But usually between a 0.9 and a 1, you can do primarily everybody.
Now, do you, in your practice, do you go down to a 0.8 by any chance?
Yeah, sometimes I do, yes. If I tell you, it's tougher doing that for our kind of hair because our hair is not a straight shot, so there's more room for error. So you don't want somebody just to say, hey, I'm going to use the 8 millimeter punch and just kind of destroy your hair. So you'd spend a lot of money and it wouldn't grow, and, that's not a good scenario. So I usually do not use a 0.8 on curly type hair because it's the transaction rate just grows tremendously with the 0.8.
Okay. So 0.9 is probably good. And finally, basically, just to give you just one more, I need your opinion on one more thing. Basically, I'm pretty much a Norwood 5 already. So it's
how old are you?
I'm about 28.
Okay.
It runs in the family pretty strong. Family history is about Norwood 7. It's pretty bad. But basically, I just want something to kind of frame up the face. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think coming in for something like 500 to 1,000 grafts is even worth it? What's your thoughts on that?
Well, it all depends on the shape of your head, how low you wanted your hairline, and, what the sides and the back look like. I would say, depending on the person, oh, yeah, it's worth it. It's like I tell somebody, somebody would give you, $5 worth of gas. If you got an empty tank, it'd be worth it,
Oh, yeah, that's a great analogy. Great analogy.
So, I think if the grafts are positioned appropriately, I mean, you can't spread 500 grafts out all over your scalp, but there are things to do, and I don't know what shows, but they do, micro tattooing, where guys don't have a lot of donor, where there are a lot of these, they call them hair stimulation, micro pigmentation. So a lot of guys will come to me with their scalp already kind of tattooed, and I've seen some beautiful jobs done. And then I'll do 500 or 600 FUE grafts just to give that hairline some texture, so people aren't just staring and saying, your hair is too perfect when you have those tattoos.
Oh, I see.
So
it's very. What I've seen from the tattoos, at least the ones I've seen in person, there's a very two-dimensional look to these tattoos.
Right, it is a two-dimensional, right. So when you add the hair, that's exactly right. You get that texture, it takes it up a notch, just what's being done. Like I can spot the guys who, especially the black guys with tattoos all day long.
Yeah.
There are millions of them on TV, in the airport. A lot of guys are going that way, but it does add some artificial kind of, behavior to the hair where you can spot it. It's too perfect. So the hair adds texture, which does a lot, 500, 600 grafts, 1,000 grafts, where like you said, initially maybe it wouldn't do a lot, but when you add it on something like that, I've seen some really good results that way too.
Oh, that sounds great. And
now let me ask you, man. Would you consider like scalp micropigmentation? Because I have like some really mixed feelings when it comes to this.
Are you asking me, Spencer?
I'm asking you. My concern is this. I think what's happening now. There's a newer trend with this temporary scalp micropigmentation where it fades in a couple of years. To me, it's like, okay, you give it a shot. If it works out, great. If it doesn't, at least it's going to go away. The permanent stuff, the stuff that I've seen, seems to turn blue in time. It seems to turn color. I don't know what you've seen. I don't know if you've seen any long-term results, Dr. Yates. But
I've seen that are people that are 2 or 3 years out. Theirs haven't turned blue. Yeah, they have to go in for maintenance like once a year to darken it a bit. But I haven't seen any blue. I was shocked. It all depends on, just like Spencer says with hair, where you go. You just can't go down to the guy who draws the Popeye on your arm and the anchor.
Right, but Vic, would you consider that?
Spencer, in all honesty and all due respect to scalp micropigmentation, I just don't think I'm a candidate for a tattoo. I've already gotten body tattoos.
Yeah.
I got some of them body tattoos lasered off because I had regret.
Yeah.
So,
well, I can tell you this. For me, I don't mean to cut you off, Dr. Yates. For me, there's no way. I could have had it done. I can have it done. I can fly. Melania, what's her name, from Italy, would fly out here and do me on the not do me, but do my scalp tattooing on the air live at no charge. And I don't want to have it done. I'd still at this point rather paint my head. It's just not for me. But I have seen some really good results. I saw Joe Tillman and I saw Spencer Stevenson Specs. They were in my studio. I saw them up close, and their work looked amazing.
Right. I've seen some amazing work, yep.
Yeah. So I think that it really depends on the person. But for me, it's just not for me.
Dr. Yates, if you don't mind, I have one last question for you.
You can ask all you want, sure.
Okay. So it's like a two-part question. First part is, what are your thoughts on beard hair used on the scalp? Because I've read a lot about it mimicking almost scalp hair. And the second question is, I've read in a lot of forums that the reason strip is still considered gold standard is because they go into subcutaneous level and get a lot of fat. And so that helps the hair stay healthier. Could you please talk about these 2 points?
Yeah. Those are kind of at the the art of FUE. Those 2 points. Beard hair is a great source of hair for people that have either exhausted their donor or don't have enough donor to complete the task. As you know, you have to shave your beard every day. What that means is all that hair is in the growth phase, meaning anagen. So when you transplant that to your scalp, it grows like crazy. The texture of beard hair is a little thicker than the texture of scalp hair, so you would not want to put the beard hair in the hairline. But it's used great. I do it myself now. I've been doing beard hair maybe the past, 4 to 6 months, and I'm starting to see the results of the patients coming back. It looks great. It's growing like crazy. And Dr. Cole usually states that, beard hair is the best body hair to use, and the growth rate should exceed 90%, of that beard hair. Yeah. Wow. So, I've had everything. I've actually had some beard hair done on me to put in my hair. And it's, I had it done 6 to 8 months ago, and it's growing, and I've been doing it on my patients. I do it with like a 0.9 millimeter punch, under the chin area. You barely, can see anything, and it works great because, think about it. Beard hair is always growing. I mean, everybody's always like 5 o'clock shadow at 5 o'clock. Nobody's scalp hair grows like that. So that's true. I think beard hair is the good hair to get. Like guys, hairy chest, hairy backs, hairy legs. I don't do that. I know you didn't ask me that, but that hair just doesn't seem to me. It doesn't grow much. And the texture is kind of wimpy. I just wouldn't use it unless unless some certain circumstance. And so, and as far as the strip and having the fat underneath, a lot of people say, well, you need fat underneath these grafts because there's stem cells in the fat, and the stem cells is actually what helps this follicle grow. But that's been proved inaccurate. Even when you do FUE, you get a little bit of fat under, the graft. And what's really important is that you take the graft out intact with the root sheath that envelopes the hair follicle. That's what seems to have stem cells. If you strip that sheath off, then the graft probably will not grow. But I can tell you now, it's purely a myth that you have to have layers of fat when you do that strip. That is not true.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Yates. This was a great phone call. I mean, Spencer, thank you so much for having Dr. Yates on today. It was great.
Oh, Vic, you got it, man. Listen, good luck. And again, you've been holding off. You've been doing your research. Do not rush into anything. If you want to contact Dr. Yates, you can find him through the IHRS and ask him some more questions, or on baldtruthtalk.com. But again, man, I don't even care if it's FUE. Once you're cut, you're cut. So you have to be sure you want to have surgery.
Well, thank you so much, Spencer. And Dr. Yates, I got to tell you, Spencer is the person we all come to for help with this. So thank you.
Okay.
All right, Vic. Listen, man, thanks a lot. And we're going to have to actually take, let me see, is that Vic? Cut him off. We're going to have to take a quick break. Dr. Yates, I want to thank you for taking the time to call in. Are you still on the air?
Sure.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I thought I almost hung up on you.
Right.
And I want everyone to know that Dr. Yates obviously is a member of the IHRS, recommended by the American Hair Loss Association. You can find him through ihrs.org, and I know that Dr. Yates is going to be a little bit more active on Bald Truth Talk message forums. So if you guys have any questions about FUE or about anything else when it comes to surgical hair restoration or hair loss, I know that Dr. Yates said that he's excited about answering your questions. So, Dr. Yates, listen, thanks a lot, and I appreciate it, and I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, thanks. Thanks so much.
All right, take care. Guys, 888-659-3727 is the toll-free number. We have to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll be taking your calls. Again, 888-659-3727. Again, if you want to contact Dr. Yates, listen, he's a great guy. He does hair transplantation, right? In my view, you can check him out through the IHRS at www.ihrs.org. And he's just he's a good guy. He really, like I said, he's evolving his practice to the point where he's just saying he wants to do more FUE. He is a patient himself, and at least in his mind, that's the way to go, especially for younger patients. So for those guys who are considering follicular unit extraction, he's definitely a guy to talk to. We'll be right back after these messages, guys. Stay with us. And you know what? I have by the way, all you guys are holding on. I'll take your calls when we come back, so just stay with us. We'll be right back.
The man who's helping to make hair loss history.
They wish to cure us, but I say we are the cure.
It's Spencer David Kobren.
Hey guys, welcome back. Triple 8-659-3727, toll-free number. Give us a call here at the Bald Truth. I want to thank Dr. William Yates, IHRS accepted member, for joining us tonight. Obviously, you can check him out through the IHRS, and he's psyched. He says he really wants to start, getting involved with the forum, and he's a smart dude. He knows a lot. And what I like about him is that he's a patient himself. So he's definitely a good guy to ask questions to. He's not going to steer you the wrong way. You can reach us here at 888-659-3727. And yes, guys, I will answer questions from the chat room. By the way, Labradoodle, my wife said to go screw yourself because she claims I have good posture. I'm not saying that I do. I'm really not. She was watching the show. Let's see. I think this is Joe. Hey, Joe, is that you?
Yeah, hi, Spencer. I want to just make a quick comment on your guest, if you don't mind.
Yes.
He made a very interesting point, Dr. Yates. The way he elaborated on how fast beard hair grows must grow 5 times faster than scalp hair. So I still understand the controversy. I mean, if beard hair works, that's a virtual cure in itself.
Well, I don't think there's necessarily, it's not about controversy. Again, it's about a limited supply. Right now, what's the biggest issue with surgical hair restoration, Joe? I mean, as you always say, it's about the limited donor supply. It's about meeting that demand.
But they can take my whole beard off. I wouldn't care.
Yeah, but you can take your whole beard off because no matter how well it's removed, I still believe that if you remove the hair from the side of your cheeks and from your mustache area and from your chin area, there's a possibility there's going to be some scarring or some confluence of scarring that will look a little abnormal. When you're taking it from underneath the chin and you're doing it in a way where, like Dr. Yates said, kind of like a mosaic, that kind of blends into your skin, into your beard, you probably aren't going to see it. But you can only move so much beard hair. Now, that beard hair can be strategically moved and used in a way that is, affords a patient a good result. But you're not going to get an entire head of hair or an entire, mid-anterior scalp replaced with beard hair. It's just not going to happen.
It would give you a couple thousand grafts, I guess. Am I right about that?
It depends on how big your face is also. Like I could probably get about 1,000 grafts out from under my chin.
Oh, some guy like Dr. Allen Feller says, no, it doesn't work at all. Some guy says it do work.
And actually, no, I think I'm exaggerating. There's no way I can get 1,000. I would say maybe safely 400 to 500 grafts from this area for me.
That's all?
I kind of have a small head. It looks bigger on camera, but in person, I'm not. I'm not a huge person.
You're not? I think you are a very huge person in person.
What? 6 feet tall is not huge. I don't have like a big head or anything.
You're tall. You're very tall. You're a tall person, but you're as tall as I am.
I'm not. You're like 6'1", Joe. When I met you, I think you're taller.
1 inch doesn't exactly make up. Well, I wear the bowler, as you know. That adds races on to me.
Let me ask you guys. I'm noticing that at least my Justin TV feed is having some problems. I don't know if Stickcam is or if Ustream is, but the feed that I'm on, which is Justin, seems to be stalling a little bit. Let me know if you guys are having the problems as well. And if you're listening, let me know if there's any issues with, and I doubt there are, with the audio. If you're listening on iTunes Radio or Stitcher, you can write me, call me, let me know if there's any problems. Usually, if there's a problem, it's just with the video. But I'd like to know.
Just one more quick thing, if you don't mind, I'll leave the call, Spencer. But he said he's Dr. Greg Ziering's partner, Dr. Yates. Did I hear that correctly?
Yeah, Dr. Yates actually works in the Chicago office with Dr. Ziering.
Well, I wish I would have a chance. I would have hit him on histogen question because, as you know, Dr. Greg Ziering is conducting histogen test himself.
Say that again? In English?
I'm saying if I were the opportunity, I would have hit Dr. Yates with a histogen question. Because, as you know, Dr. Greg Ziering is performing tests on patients himself.
Well, here's the good news. I did have a correspondence with Dr. Ziering's office today, and he wanted to actually come on the show next Tuesday. I'm not sure if I'm going to be doing the show because it's Election Day, and I usually like to be at the bar during Election Day. So I'm not sure if I'm going to do the show. What do you guys think?
I think do it, Spencer, because I've already predicted the results of the election to you, and you know I'm always right.
But I could do the show. Maybe I could do a live stream from the bar. That would be fun, wouldn't
I
it?
think you want to do a 4-hour show so we can do the election and have
Too much,
at the same time.
too much background noise. There's no way I can do it.
No.
But if anyone could figure it out, anyone who could figure it out, it's Andrew Zarian. He could figure it out for me. No, but no, honestly, during an election, especially a big election like this, I'd like to be at the bar.
Well, Spencer,
It's like a football game for me.
As you know, that President Romney, Romney will be elected president of the United States with approximately 320 electoral votes. That's my prediction. Please have your engineer record that.
Say that again.
I'm predicting that Mitt Romney will win the election with 320 electoral votes.
Listen, I don't want to get into it. I'm
not commenting on who I support. I'm just making a prediction.
I don't go by polls, honestly, and if anyone really understands our Constitution and the way that presidents are elected, I mean, these polls from all over the country, frankly, at this point, don't mean shit. You need Ohio, right? You need Florida. What else, Joe?
Yeah, the battleground states: Ohio,
Virginia,
Florida, Nevada, Virginia, North Carolina, and New Hampshire. And Iowa.
Honestly, I don't know, man. I just don't know. I think you might be wrong.
Well, Spencer, as you know, as I've stated, I will submit not saying any more rumors started. I better not say it. I'll be attacked, so let me not say it.
Well, I don't like to talk politics. When you talk politics, when you're a quasi-public figure, a Z-list celebrity like I am, and you get involved in thank you, you get involved in politics, you make a lot of enemies. Now, if you're George Clooney, you can go out there swinging. It doesn't mean a thing. But in my position, I need as many friends as I can get.
We're not saying who we support. We're just making a prediction of who's going to win. I'm not saying I support President Obama or Mitt Romney. I'm just stating I'm a student of politics, as you know. My expert opinion, Romney will be elected the next president of the United States. I'm not saying I support him or I don't. I'm just making a projection for the audience.
All right. I'm reading the chat room, and I see a guy's like, do you know if Spencer Zarian is Spencer? Spencer Zarian is Andrew Zarian's dog. He named him after me, which I don't know how I feel, guys, about that, but maybe maybe it was a compliment, I guess.
Well, maybe you better save Dr. Zarian for the following week, because I guess some people will be distracted by the election.
Well, honestly, I was reading the chat room too. It's not like I'm holding off on having Dr. Zarian on the show. I really do think it'd be better having him on the next week because a lot of guys will not be tuning in, at least for the live broadcast. And frankly, I know it doesn't matter. The vast majority of people are watching it on demand anyway. But I like to have some interaction. There's a lot of guys who want to ask questions live. And I think it would be doing you guys a disservice to have them on when you guys, may be preoccupied and not actually in the chat room or watching the show.
I guess you're right about that, Spencer. But I will start preparing my list of questions from now, if you don't mind. I'll give you an extra week to prepare.
Okay, well, I appreciate that. A lot of guys in the chat room, they want to know my thoughts about beard hair transplantation. My thoughts are this, and we spoke about it. We spoke about it briefly, but my thoughts are this. I still think that any type of body hair transplants are kind of a last resort. I agree with Dr. Yates as far as, the way that beards grow. But if you have enough donor area, the guys that are going in for, there's a couple of guys out there that are really promoting body hair transplantation. And I think they're doing it, in my view, to the service of some patients. The guys that are doing 10,000, 12,000, 15,000 grafts from all over the body. While I do think there is use for this, and I think there's a lot of guys, and again, let me preface this by letting you guys know I'm not a doctor. This is my opinion as a layman and as an expert in the field of surgical hair restoration, but not as a doctor. I understand the industry. I think that it's doing some guys some disservice, and frankly, for some doctors out there, I think it's just a way to make a paycheck. Now, I do think that utilizing beard hair for the right candidate could be incredible. So there are some guys out there that have some, bad scarring. That's great. There's some guys there that want to have their hairline refined, and they don't have enough donor to move, and they don't have enough hair that is viable through FUE, for instance. Then, maybe beard hair is good. I don't know, Joe.
But everyone could use some more hair. That's the bottom line.
Listen, don't think I don't consider it, dude. Don't think I don't consider it every day. Every day when I get up in the morning, this is how I get up in the morning and I put on my ball cap and then I go work out. I go into my garage and I work out most of the time. Sometimes, like today, I worked out a little late. But every time I actually do my hair, take a shower, wash the paint out of my head, see myself with a wet head of hair, I think to myself, shit. Life might be easier if I decide to get something done surgically. But I still haven't pulled that trigger. Because in my view, because I've saved so much hair, and you guys know this, I am concerned about shocking out the hair that I have. And I'm equipped to deal with the idea of painting my head a little bit and, kind of finessing it with hairspray. I've done that for many years. I've done that through several relationships, including my recent one, which is, 13 years old. And it served me well. But there are times when I think, you know what, like you're right, Joe, everyone could use more hair, and I have the opportunity to do that. So, I don't know.
You more so than anybody in the world has that opportunity.
That's not true. There's some guys out there that, they can definitely get, whoever they want to transplant them, or they can probably kind of collect a team. You can get Jerry Wong and Victor Hassan and Ron Shapiro and, whoever, Dr. Yates, or whoever you want on your team. There's a couple of guys out there that can get that done, and I know that I can as well. And I'm very fortunate. But, part of me is like, if I do that and if I choose certain doctors, then it's going to make it kind of difficult for, other guys to make their choice without being swayed by the guys that I chose. Because, it doesn't necessarily mean because I chose a certain guy that it's the right doctor for another person. And I don't think people understand that. I think it's like, okay, if a celebrity or if Kobren, whatever, goes to this doctor, it's because he's the best in the world. You know what? He may have been the best for my situation. He may do crowns better than, say, another doctor down the road. And I just need my crown done. You know what I'm saying, Joe?
But you could do it in a clandestine fashion and tell no one. Except you and the doctor would be the only people who would know.
Well, I got to tell you, legally, I would say that most of the doctors would probably not violate my physician-patient privilege. But, behind the scenes, I have a feeling there's a lot of gossip that goes on. So who knows? It could get out.
I know you, and I don't think you're emotionally equipped to deal with possible shock loss. That could be devastating for you. Am I correct?
What are you saying? That I'm weak?
I'm saying
I'm just kidding. You're absolutely right. I'm a mess. There's no way. I have OCD. You know how I am. You've been calling the show for 14 years. You've met me a few times. I couldn't deal with it. If something went wrong, I would not be happy. And that's why I tell everybody that surgery is a last resort. However, if you choose to have surgery, if you do your due diligence, there is a great chance of having a great outcome if you choose the right doctor and the right staff. I have seen so much incredible work. And I got to tell you, Joe, sometimes I'm a little envious. When I saw Specs, for instance, in Joe Tronic, they were sitting in my studio here, I was a little jealous as far as, the coverage they were able to get with hair transplantation. And no offense, Joe, because Joe has a kind of a thinner crown than Specs. I was like, wow, Specs had like 10 hair transplants. This guy's hair is completely full. It was amazing. Now, Joe has kind of thinner diameter hair. So, it's not quite as full, especially in the crown. And Joe's hair transplant is unbelievable. The guy looks like a god. But I was blown away by both of them, to tell you the truth. But I was a little jealous, for sure. Because I know that if I had something done, that my life might be that much easier, like going on rides with my nephews and my nieces, and doing things that would free me up from the crazy comb over hairspray situation that I live every day.
Spencer, if I woke up tomorrow morning with your head of hair, I'd be able to walk out in the sunshine and hear the birds sing for once in my life.
Oh shit, Joe! Come on, dude. Are you drinking tonight? I'm drinking a little bit tonight. It's my second glass of wine.
No, I'm not. I'm very lucid. And you have a beautiful head of hair, man. I'm not lying. I consider myself,
Look, I'm not. I appreciate that. I have enough hair to dummy it up to make it look pretty good. Now, I will say that if you touch my hair, it's not going to feel too good. It feels like a brick.
Yeah.
My hair hasn't moved since 1987.
Oh.
And that's the truth. It's ridiculous. Some days look more like a comb over than others. I'm lucky that my hairline's high. There's no doubt about it. But I'm lucky that I have enough to comb over on this side. It's a little higher on this side, so it's covered better. And the center is, not great. To me, it's pretty thin. And if I were to actually put that out on video, I think some people would be shocked.
Well, I think, Spencer, maybe you should speak to someone, because the average person looking at your hair would say you have no hair loss.
Who am I going to speak to? Another therapist? I have a family shrink.
Well, you have no visible hair loss. Spencer, I could spot hair loss a mile away. You know that. In my expert opinion, you have no visible hair loss.
Well, I appreciate that, dude. George is holding on the line, and we have other calls.
Sorry. Thank you, Spencer.
No, it's okay. I haven't spoken to George in a while. We have some other calls to take as well, but I know George is holding on. I want to talk to him a little bit.
George earlier?
Yeah, but he only said a couple of words, and I cut him off. So what? I'm gonna keep you potted up. All right, Joe?
Okay, my kid, that wasn't me. My kid is downstairs, so that was somebody else.
Or maybe it's Joe's kid, George's kid.
All right.
Hey, George. George, you there? I'll give you a second to turn your phone on if you actually are holding still. All right, got to hang up, dude. You must have dropped the line. So let me give out the phone number, 888-659-3727. You guys should feel free to call in and ask any questions about anything. As far as what's happening in the chat, listen, I'm not obviously I'm going to have Dr. Zirin on the air. He's a really busy guy. The guy travels like crazy. I've never known anyone who actually travels as much as this cat. Now, you're not a big traveler, Joe. You're agoraphobic.
No. Yes, I haven't been on an airplane in about 25 years.
What?
Yeah. 25 years, the last time I was on an airplane.
So you haven't been, have you driven out of the state?
No, I really don't go. As I've gotten older, as you commented on the show last week, I've gotten worse. I'm basically homebound,
See, I don't talk about it, but I've been lucky that I have to do the show once a week. So I travel, not a lot, but I travel, an average amount. And I'm able to go, during the week or on the weekend and, make my trips. And I travel a lot around the country and outside of the country at times. I can't imagine not traveling to some extent to just basically, so you stay on Staten Island most of the time?
Yes, once in a while I do go to Long Island to see my parents, but that's even get harder for me, to do. As you said last week, as I get older, I'm getting worse. I've never been, in a worse situation than I am now. I just don't leave the house, and I'm sitting here in the dark because there's no power. It's pretty frightening.
That's very depressing. I was thinking about that guy that used to call into the broadcast when we were on WOR radio, Joe, who was living in Brooklyn in a studio or one-bedroom apartment, walk-up apartment, who was decimated by some hair transplant doctor back in the day and just never worked again, never lived his life because he felt he was so disfigured.
Yeah, he had a rotary telephone, I think.
He had a rotary telephone. He was listening to an old school radio, and he would say that the bald truth was the only thing that he looked forward to all week. Now, that's a lot of pressure, I got to tell you.
Well, what happened to all these people over the years, Spencer? They don't call in anymore. Have they killed themselves? Have they been committed? What's happened to all these people?
It's very possible. But also, listen, we've been off of local radio in New York for a long time. The last time we were on local radio in New York was 2008.
Right.
2008, and then we went to satellite. So a lot of these guys just, they couldn't follow us, and especially this cat, he couldn't afford it.
What does it take to get the phone number and call up? You don't need a computer; just call up on a telephone.
I agree, man. But guys just don't have the wherewithal. They think if they can't listen to the broadcast, they're not going to call the show. So
I don't know. Over all these years, TJ, all these people, they've just abandoned the show, and really, I find it quite offensive.
Are you kidding me, man? I'm going to take some calls in a second, and guys, hold on. But if a guy needs the broadcast, Joe, to get through his life, to have some sort of therapy, to be part of the fraternity that no one wants to belong to, and then move on with his life, I don't want them to listen to this fucking show. I'd rather guys just move on with their life, get the information they need, and move on. We've got plenty of listeners. There's 200,000 of us waking up every day for the first time, realizing that they're losing their hair. I don't need guys to, these long-time listeners. And, I'm not working on Arbitron numbers, and I'm dating myself. Arbitron is not even doing that anymore. But that's not the way the show works. And I'm not concerned about the loyalty. I appreciate your loyalty, Joe, but I'd rather you move on with your life.
Well, that's not possible, Spencer.
Dude, you're depressing me. I'm sorry to hear that. Let me see who this is.
Okay, thank you, Spencer.
Hey, you're on the air. Who's this?
Hey, this is Curtis from Virginia.
Curtis from
I've
Virginia.
talked to you a few times.
What's happening, man? What can I do for you?
Nothing. I don't know if you remember. I've talked to you a few times. About my situation. I had several hair transplants. About your age now, and with the hairspray and stuff, I can same as that.
I do remember.
Story,
you're a GFQ fan that found us through GFQ, right?
Yeah. Well, not really. No, I just found it through your show.
Okay, cool. So what's up?
Yeah. You're right. I called that show one night and then said I was going to call you. But anyway, because so it just again, the whole hairspray thing, and I live the same life you do. It looks good to everyone else, but and it's just weird psychologically because you have that it yourself kind of thing. Well, I think that's what you're trying to explain to Joe is like, yeah, it looks great, but you still know yourself.
Well, it's kind of like a disguise. I always tell people I live in disguise, but this is the difference between me and you guys. I live my life as an open book. I let everyone know, A, that I'm screwed up over hair loss, B, that I'm like the Harry Houdini of the comb over. So that kind of opens it up to, people say, oh, you look great, whatever it is, and you're not really in hiding. Even though I am in hiding in a sense, I tell people that I'm doing this. Most guys who are doing what I do don't talk about it.
No, so that's why the show's really helped me. I just want to tell you because I've loosened up about it since listening to you talk about. So I'll joke around with my friends. Oh yeah, I have to at this point because they'll say to me like, oh, you're lucky you still have lots of hair.
Right.
Like your just exact comment, and now I can at least say yeah, but it's because of the hairspray. I've gotten much more relaxed about it, and your show's helped.
I'm glad that I was able to help you, man. That makes me feel really good. I mean, I definitely feel a lot more comfortable when I talk about it, and it doesn't matter. You could be around the hottest woman. It doesn't make a difference. If you are open and honest about it, initially they might think it's a little odd. Wait a second, you paint your head, whatever it is. Then you kind of explain, well, these women are wearing a full face of makeup. I've never... and I've said this before, there's not a woman on the planet past the age of 17 years old who is not dyeing their hair, who is not wearing fake nails, makeup on their face, fake lashes, push-up bras, fake tans. I mean, all we have is hair. What do I have? I could grow a beard, I can shave my beard off, and I can keep my hair. And that's it. There's nothing else I can do to make myself look different.
Yeah, so, I mean, it looks like when I've hairspray mostly, it looks like a full head of hair, but but it's helped me. This show's helped me to say, look, so somebody touches or whatever, I'll just make a joke. Yeah, it's a lot of hair, just much more. So it's helped me in that way, just and counseling and stuff. But I had a couple questions, if that's okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
One, first of all, as far as hairspray, have you found any that's not as doesn't flake, any that you would recommend that? I mean, I've tried a lot, but I have one I like a lot now that's good. But any comment on that?
Listen, I will tell you that they're all relatively similar. Basically, you are spraying glue onto your scalp. The more natural hairsprays that don't have alcohol and stuff like that, I got to tell you, they don't work well for me. So, forgive me, everybody, but I am, putting a hole in the ozone over my house, because I prefer aerosol as opposed to pump.
Well, I found one that's good, if I can say the name. And I've,
go ahead.
Believe me, through the years, used everything.
Yeah, go ahead.
And it's natural. It's sold by Avita.
All right, and what's the name of it?
And it's all natural. It's called Control Force, and it's the best one I've ever. And believe me, I can promise you I've used as many as you. I've tried everything.
Well, I'll check it out. Avita Control Force. Now, is it an air?
It's
a pump,
all
right?
natural. It's environmental. It's good.
Well, I'll check it out.
Hairspray. I think it's really good.
I'll check it out. But if it fucks me up, I'm gonna let you know.
I don't care.
All right.
So what? I'm just getting in line. But it goes on dry. You'll see. I've used everything, but because it's important. I think in my situation, your situation, it becomes a critical thing. So that's one thing. And then the second I wanted, and is Joe on there?
Yeah, Joe's potted up.
Yeah. Yeah, just interested to hear this question to what, all right, so I have a 19-year-old son who's going to be 20, all right? And my kids have no idea what I've gone through with my hair, none. They think sometimes, like Dad takes, why are you taking so long to get ready? Little things. But at this point, I can go swimming, things like that, and I'm fine.
That's great.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so my question is, like 19, 20, and I can see maybe he might be at the very beginning, but he cuts it real short, so doesn't know. Would you say something or not say something? Because as far as, like, if he would, like, I felt if I said something early, Propecia, something like that, it could really change his life, but I don't want to send him down my road.
That's a great question. I'm not even going to let Joe answer this one.
Oh, I don't want to. I'm not cutting my son's balls off.
I
know his answer.
My advice is, and then I will let Joe answer after I answer. But my advice is this: if you sense that your kid is suffering,
no, he has no idea.
Yeah, if he has no idea, when he has an idea, what's your relationship like with your kid?
We talk about everything.
All right,
I could bring that up.
All right. So what you might want to do at some point is talk about your own hair, and just say, hey, like whatever in passing, that man, you're using more hairspray than ever now because you're thinning hair, and see if that's something that would elicit a conversation from him.
He shaves his like real close. It's not even an issue. It's not even a.
Yeah. If he says, Dad, what are you worried about? Then frankly, what's the big deal about hair loss? Then frankly, he's not that worried about it.
Right. And I don't want to bring it up because I don't want to go to my whole psychological thing.
Let me tell you, my dad.
It was brought up to me at a very young age, and it put it in my mind very early.
Listen, my late brother, I'm getting drunk. My late brother, let him rest in peace. I asked him if he thought that I was losing if he thought I was losing my hair. I was like 21. He goes, "Yeah, it looks a little thin on top." Now, it really wasn't that thin at the time. It was just the beginning. But that, let him rest in peace, Al. I'm sorry, but I got to tell the story. That fucked me up.
Yeah.
And then my dad, at one point, I was 23 years old. I was out, and I went out with them, my mother, my late mother, and my father for it was some sort of an anniversary dinner of theirs. I forgot what it was. I hadn't seen them in a while. And my father said, it looks like you're wearing a toupee because of my hairspray.
Right.
And, I was the very beginning, the throes of hair loss. I was in the beginning of it. And that really screwed me up. So I would say don't say a word unless he's bothered by it, unless he comes to you. If he's actually the type of kid to talk to you about anything, then don't say anything. I know that you want to help him, but sometimes that's going to damage them more.
Well, that's what I've learned, I think, basically with kids in general, is don't put your problems onto them.
Right.
But, that doesn't, because you have it doesn't mean he might not care. And secondly, plus, his mother, my wife's dad, still has all his hair.
Yeah.
So, who knows what's going to happen? But he genetically is me. You know what I'm saying? It's obvious.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. You're right. He may not care. He's also growing up in a time where shaving their head is more acceptable, or keeping it really short is more acceptable. And
I don't know, because you talk about something that really I think is so true. Guys have no mercy with each other. And,
that's true.
I don't know if you've been following this. All right, LeBron James, the greatest athlete in the world, right?
Yeah.
What do you think he's hounded by?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We know that.
Now, the rumors are that he's had work and that his hairline now is stable. So if you go Google that, there's a big thing about that. But my point is, and they said he did it because he was tired of hearing about it. So if you're LeBron James on top of the world and it gets to you, what chance do we have? You know what I'm saying?
No. I know. Listen, I was a quasi athlete in high school and in college, and I played baseball. And guys were brutal in the locker room.
Brutal.
I mean, absolutely brutal. And I was like a small guy to play baseball. I grew after high school, but in high school, I was tiny. I was like 5'9", 5'10", maybe 170 pounds. And that doesn't seem that small, but when you're playing baseball, that's small. And guys were just absolutely brutal. I got, they gave me complexes, and I can't imagine what it would have been like if I was losing my hair at that age. So yeah, I get it, dude. Don't tell your kid unless he.
I'm not. But I just wanted to.
Can I get my opinion on that?
Absolutely. You know what? Now, Joe, you can go ahead.
Yeah, but let me just say, we'll preface it with this. He's not losing his balls under any circumstance.
No, I'm not going to advocate you have your son castrated.
And I'm not dressing him up like a woman and cutting his ball. I'm living in the real world.
Yeah.
Those are two possibilities. I'm only kidding. I honestly think, as a father, that you should tell him before one of his friends does. That's coming.
Yeah. You know what? Yeah, I've thought about that. Let me go back at you at this point. That what you do then is you look at your life and look what I've had to go through and look what Spencer. Do you put those fears? Shouldn't his problems be his own, not ours?
I think that's great. I think that's really a profound statement, to tell you the truth, and I think that's really smart to think that way. Joe, I appreciate what you're saying, Joe, but look at your kid. Look at Vincent. Your kid at the age of 8 was walking around with a empty Rogaine bottle filled with water.
Let him find his own problems, because they'll find them. It's not like the world's not going to find problems. But why put it? That's what you wrestle with. Don't put yours onto them.
I agree with that. I think that's great advice, and I think you're a great dad. I really do. I think you sound like a really great father.
But I've thought about it a lot, because I've seen that they don't have my problems. They're not me.
That's right.
But they'll have their own. And I think it's like the parent. If I was an alcoholic and I drank around them, why? Why give them my? So, Joe, do you think maybe, like with your kid, that might be a road you're going down?
No, my son is already fearful of it. Of course.
Well, you just used the word fear. That's what I lived with. See, my dad was bald. My mom would talk to me about the fear. Think of all the years he's living now that he doesn't have to deal with it. He wouldn't have. I wouldn't have had. He'll have to deal with it one day. But that you just said it. Why deal with the fear? Years before. Why are we doing that to each other?
No,
everything that's sold, all these infomercials, everything that's sold is based on fear.
But your son's, situation, you could possibly arrest his hair loss with Propecia. I'm not saying it's going to work. It might work. Isn't it better to try to treat the problem?
But he's 19. But I think Spencer, I agree and confirm what I think. When the time comes, but for right now, he's living a beautiful, great life in college.
Exactly.
Why give him fear?
Yeah, I agree. Unless he's voicing his concerns, and he may never voice his concerns to you, but why even put that into his head? Why say, hey, you know what, kiddo? You might want to consider using Propecia because it looks like you're losing your hair. That would devastate me.
I might wreck his life.
I'd be like, what? Really?
Yes.
Don't do that, man.
Well, the point, Spencer, the point I'm trying to make is what's going to happen when one of his friends at college tells him, it's coming. How is he going to feel then?
That's his problem. He'll deal with it.
That's a great question. But see, that's my point. Then, like I think Spencer said, he works out all the time. Same thing that happens when his friend said, you don't have any abs.
Right.
In other words, if he came to me, I think he would, and he'd say, Dad, do you think this is true? Then I think Spencer's advice is good. I'd say, look, let me tell you a whole story here. And
absolutely,
there's a lot more options now, and you can be a lot smart, There's a whole,
it's also you also might want to, at some point when your kid is in the house, it's a Tuesday night, whatever it is, put on the Bald Truth. So you watch this show. You don't have to say something like, "You don't have to worry about this yet," or "You don't have to worry about this." And if he does think about it, then he'll say, "Wait a second, you know what, Dad? I think I may have to worry about this."
Yeah, and then hopefully I'll be able to do what no one was able to do for me, because this was so long ago. Like you call it the dark ages, to say, not make it a huge problem. Don't worry. There's alternatives. We'll deal with it. Just don't forget about it.
Absolutely, it's not the end of the world. There's help out there.
Yeah,
I think you're a good dad, man. I kind of wish that my dad was a little bit more sensitive when it came to that shit.
I was thrown to the wolves.
Oh, dude, I was thrown to the wolves with everything. Are you kidding me, man?
I mean, I told you, but I mean, luckily, what they did grew, and I had thick, coarse hair, real hair that I hated when I was younger, ended up saving me. You know what I mean? That as I hated it, like, oh, my hair is so gross, younger.
Yeah.
If I didn't have it, I wouldn't have a life.
Well, the bottom line is you're married, you have children, you have a family. As difficult as it's been for you, you've had success in your life.
Yeah, I mean, and so it's just interesting. And then I said, like, when I hear Joe, I hear like so what I hear when I listen to your show is, I hear what I grew up with. I hear hope and fear, on your show.
Yeah.
The yin, and that it's that fear. It just kills you. I mean, because I mean, I was watching this thing, the new hair club ad.
Yeah.
And they make it sound like you can come in there, and if I was that age, and you're going to walk out with a full head of hair.
Well, look, you guys know how I feel about the hair club. You know how I feel about the way they've marketed all these years. I think some things are changing, but that's one of the firms. Even though they were just recently bought out by Adirond's, who owns Bosley, the hair club is still one of the firms, in my view, that is really presenting a false picture of the reality of how to deal with hair loss. And it bugs me. It still bugs me to this day, and I'm surprised that they continue to do what they're doing. But, obviously there's a monicum of success there. More than a monicum, there is, significant success with the way that they market themselves, and it's unfortunate.
Well, I appreciated that. That was my try that. It's Avita. I think you'll see what I'm talking about. It's.
All right, man.
Old, but it's not as thick. You'll see.
I appreciate your call. I appreciate the advice on the hairspray. I'll check it out, and I think you're right. Don't tell your son, man. Just let him live his life.
Yeah, I mean that's what I was thinking. But just and I'm definitely not appropriate. That would be the first choice. I mean, side effects. I'm not. I know people are nervous, but I think when the time comes, I can talk to him about it. So I appreciate it. I just wanted to get another voice on it.
All right, man. Well, listen, thanks for the call, as always.
All
and
right.
We're going to take another call. Take care.
All right.
All right.
Good night, sir.
Hey, you're on the air. Who's this? Hey, what's happening, man? You're on the air. Say hi. I'm going to give you one more chance to say hello. You're on the air.
Hello.
Yes, hello.
Hey, it's George. I got sidetracked and got got disconnected and had not disconnected. I had a call I had to take.
What's happening, man?
I missed a bunch of stuff, business stuff. I missed the end of the interview with the surgeon. Since I was on the phone, I could not see what was going on. Is this gentleman, the surgeon, was he a black guy?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I kept wondering why you kept talking about African American and all this. So I didn't realize that he was.
Well, I can tell you that you've been listening to the show for a long time, and I will say that there's probably 5 black dudes that have called this program who were concerned about their hair loss. I mean, the show's been on the air for 14 years, and we have a couple of guys who were longtime listeners who were brothers, and I thought it was interesting, to kind of get. I thought it would be interesting to kind of get a little insight on how this guy, who's had several hair transplants, felt about his hair loss. He's a good-looking guy too. I mean, it's not like, to me, as a black guy, looking at him, he doesn't need hair. He's a good-looking dude, but obviously it affected him to the point where he had 5 hair transplants. So I mean, I think there's a misconception. I think there's a misconception out there that listen, if you have dark skin, you can get away with it. Maybe it looks better if you have dark skin, but these guys are still fucked up over it.
Right. Well, you guys didn't. In case, I apologize. I'm still getting over a bad upper respiratory infection and bronchitis.
That's all right.
Unless I missed it, I did not hear you guys identify him as being a black guy when he came on the program. I just heard you start talking about black guys as patients and all, and that's kind of what got my.
Well, I think that'd be kind of interesting. It's kind of like identifying myself as a Jew. I don't think I would come on the air and all of a sudden just identify myself as a Jewish guy.
Right. It's just kind of left us out in the dark a little bit because we didn't really know, not being able to see those of us on the phone.
Right.
We didn't really make the connection, but excuse me, I apologize. That's why what piqued my attention was the question the guy called in about which is a question I was going to ask him about the melanin discrepancy, with the punches, leaving the white dots and all that. And I thought maybe when he mentioned about for himself, I thought maybe he was just some olive-skinned guy with a dark tan or something.
No, and
I didn't know
he said he has no issue with that. I mean, he had several, procedures, and he's got no, even under his chin. He says there's no scarring, there's no hypopigmentation, there's no scarring. He doesn't see anything, like nothing was done.
Well, that's really encouraging, because if I ever ended up doing a transplant, I don't want any linear scars whatsoever. And it sounds like the FUE is the way to go. And now that they've kind of got this automated thing going on, I know you said it still depends on the skill of the surgeon, knowing how to do the artistry and the placement and the angling of the follicles and all that. But at least you know that you can do that procedure. In the future, you end up having some catastrophe, and you ended up suddenly rapidly losing the rest of your frontal or crown hair to the point where it just didn't look right anymore. You needed to shave your head. You weren't going to look like, like somebody had splattered the top of your head with shotgun
Yeah,
pellets.
you know what? I'm looking at the chat room right now, and Granger says it all. I mean, FUE is not scarless, and that's the truth. That's what I found. There are some guys who have less visible scarring than others. I really think it depends on your healing characteristics, as well as the technique involved. But it's still, every time you cut your skin, every time you score that skin, every time you remove something, a graft from the skin, you're going to leave a scar. Even if it's imperceptible, if you have enough of them, there might be it's possible that you can be the unlucky guy that develops like a confluence of scarring, where it becomes very, very visible. So, I just think it's important that anyone who gets involved in any type of surgical procedure understand that there's always a possible downside. And even with FUE, it's possible that you're going to be unhappy with the scarring, even in the best hands. Everybody's different.
What about the possibility of using some of that A cells and that extracellular matrix, like a paste or something, to smear over the areas where it was done? Could that possibly help it heal better, where there will be less pock marking?
Well, there's some doctors who are working with that, and there is some anecdotal evidence that seems to be working, but there's a lot of guys out there that are saying that it's not. And that, A-cell is not panning out to what everyone thought it would be. At least in this field. Now, it could be user error. It could be, the fact that, for whatever reason, the guys that are utilizing it in their practices have not figured out how to use it correctly. We just don't know.
I got you. Well, thanks for taking my questions, and it was glad to hear all your family and friends are safe and sound in the midst of that tragedy. We need to keep all those folks in our prayers. It's
listen, and I appreciate the fact that you thought of my dad, and that's very kind of you.
Well, those of us who've lived through these nightmares multiple times in our lifetime, I've lived through so many of these storms. I've gone without power so many times. I've watched my senior year in high school. The storm hit 2 weeks into my senior year in high school that devastated Mobile, and even worse, wind-wise, not water-wise, but it was a dry storm worse than Katrina did. And I woke up the next morning with our house covered with pine trees, like 60 pickup sticks, 80-foot pine trees all lying across top of our house. My car squashed to the ground.
Wow.
I mean, I've lived through so many of these things. It's just whenever you see folks get hit with it who are not prepared for it, it tears at your heart because you know how tough it can be.
It's heavy. Listen, I lived through 9/11, dude.
Yeah, exactly.
You know? So, I mean, that's something, at least with a hurricane, you know, I mean, there's, you know, you kind of get some warning.
Right, exactly. But anyway, thanks for taking my call. And
all right, man. We just actually, Joe's phone just dropped out, so I wonder if he's having some issues with, you know, the storm in Staten Island. So
right.
All right, listen, man. Thanks a lot for the call. I'm so glad that you, you know, you're okay, by the way. And I haven't heard from you in a while. You called. What did you call last week or the week before?
Last week.
Yeah. You've been MIA for a couple of months.
Yeah, I tell you, I've been working on you know, personal issues on the campaign stuff, and then also on.
So what do you think? What do you think the outcome's going to be?
I personally have the gut feeling that the mainstream media is so socialist and leftist and so much in Obama's corner. If they say that they're neck and neck, which is what they've been saying, that means that Romney's actually far ahead, and they're not willing to concede that. That's my personal gut feeling. I believe that if they really believed that Obama was way ahead, they would be saying that. That's just my gut feeling on the way they operate. So I personally feel that Romney, you know, they're saying, I hear a lot of people who are in the know, who are very politically active, say that they think this is going to be a repeat of the 1980 scenario with Jimmy Carter and Reagan, that the polls were saying he was very close, and then Reagan buried him in a landslide.
Right.
That's my gut feeling. I don't know how you feel about it. That's my take on what I think is happening. But
well,
you know, I don't.
My take on what's happening, and I don't want to get too involved in politics. We got to close up shop. Is that the national polls, at least at this point, at this stage of the game, are completely meaningless in my view.
Yep, I agree.
And what is being presented in the media, whether it's the mainstream media or Fox News, is not necessarily as accurate as I think that the average voter should get their information. I just think that there's a lot of misinformation being put out there, and
there's no doubt about that.
Yeah,
there's no doubt about that, Spencer. You're absolutely right, and I personally feel that it is going to be the economy is going to be the primary focus of what the American people are concerned about, much more so than the foreign policy thing. But if you want to add foreign policy in between Fast and Furious and the killing of I don't know how many Mexicans and American agents, and then this Benghazi thing, which is now blowing up to show that the administration knew a lot more about it than they said, and they're not owning up to it. I think that part of the foreign policy issue, what little bit that contributes to the equation of the outcome of the election, will be very damaging for them. So,
listen, the bottom line is, all people need to understand now and care about is what's happening in Ohio, Florida, and Virginia.
That's right.
In my view. So, I mean, you're getting a cross-section of polls from like Wyoming and California and Alabama. It doesn't mean shit.
Right.
So, keep your focus on what's happening in those states. And then you can get a better gauge of what's really going to happen. So anyway, Guy, listen, I love the fact that you, and again, I appreciate the fact that you actually called to ask about my dad. And Common Law said that you called the house, so thank you so much for that.
Well, tell her I said hello, and I did have your family in my thoughts and prayers, and I just want to make sure that I know that how much you care about your dad, and that I was thinking about him and my other friends in New York City, who were being subjected to that, and so.
All right, George.
Still trying to get in touch with our friend in the village, man. The phones are still down, so
yeah, I'm sure he's fine. Believe me, I'm sure he's fine. I mean, listen, he's probably living in a brick building that on a higher
he's
floor.
Got a rent control. Yeah, he's got a rent controlled apartment, way up on probably, I don't know if it's the 15th or 20th floor or something, and he's got a little patio with a perfect view of the Empire State Building and the Chrysler Building. I mean, it's just
great.
really breathtaking view from his patio, where I spent many an afternoon and evening, hanging out.
Yeah,
So,
unless his windows blew out, he's fine.
no, I think he should probably be okay. He's just an older guy, and I was just concerned about him being cut off,
Yeah. All right, man. Well, listen,
But anyway.
we'll be around probably next week. I'm not sure if I'm going to do the show on Election Day. Like I said, I'd like to spend Election Day in a bar. That's my thing.
Right.
So we'll see. All right, bro. I'll talk to you. Thanks for the call. Guys, thank you so much for hanging out tonight. And I'm sorry I started the show a couple of minutes late. That's why we're ending it about 4 or 5 minutes late. Joe from Staten Island, I don't know if you got cut off because of the storm. I doubt it because the storm is over. But who knows? Maybe you just lost power or, lost your signal. Guys, let me give out the websites, thebaldtruth.com. If you're considering surgery for your hair, if you're considering surgical hair restoration, check out ihrs.org. Also, check out americanhairloss.org. And listen, one of our guys, actually my producer, Andrew Zarian, his program is up for Best Tech Show on Stitcher.com. So why don't you go over there and vote for his broadcast? And you know what? I should see if I can find out and give you guys the exact link on where to vote. You know what? Go to Facebook, go to GFQ, or actually go to gfqlive.tv. I'm pretty sure at the bottom of the page there is a banner for Stitcher and how to vote. Check it out. Vote for What the Tech. It's a great show, and I'm really proud of Andrew Zarian and the guys for making it to the finals. Until next week, I want to say thank you guys for hanging out. Until then, be strong, God bless, and we'll see you then.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry for any inconvenience you may have been put to prior to the program, and I'm glad you enjoyed it. And if you could now leave by the exits at the rear, that'd be splendid. Thank you.